Come on, bro. Talking about X-Men Origins Wolverine, you really think anybody cares?
This is so much more entertaining right now than the movie we just watched.
This is Mish's Movie Club. We have to watch a bad movie before we can appreciate the good movies. So, we watched X-Men Origins Wolverine, a certified hood classic if you were a white or brown guy in the early 2000s. So, I watched it with Adam. We had a great time. Did we have a great time? I don't know.
I don't know. Mish bought some drinks for us, and that made it a pretty okay time.
Some good soda pop.
And it really made me feel like a 10-year-old.
I was in the same brainwave as the director. With these soda pops.
Yeah, there's only one way to describe the brainwave we were in, and it's kind of a spoiler for the end of the movie. But anyway.
Nauseating.
Yeah.
Overall thoughts on the movie revisiting it as an adult?
Technology's got so much better, but when you're a kid, you really don't notice how bad the CGI is. And there were so many moments that just took me out of the movie where I was like, that looks like shit.
Oh yeah, I felt the same way. For me, when I was watching this movie as a kid, it was like always so fun. And then like I remember watching it back and back, and then like, you know, as you grow older, you hear people talk about how bad a movie is that you thought was good, and you're so ignorant about it. But yeah, I watched this movie, and like there were times when I was like felt like I was having a good time, but it wasn't the director's fault. I was laughing at the movie, not with the movie. There was only one scene that was actually pretty humorous and good, but the boxing scene.
Oh yeah,
that was actually pretty funny.
I mean, I thought that was pretty good.
We should probably get into the plot.
Yeah. I mean, Mish Pat's an aficionado in canon events whenever it comes to this kind of universe, so it was very fun to watch this with him and hear his quips about the differences in canon between not only this movie but the entire cinematic X-Men universe as well, because there's a lot of discrepancies in this movie that
the X-Men franchise went from director to director. And it's not like the Marvel Cinematic Universe where Kevin Feige oversees everything and we can have a little bit of continuity. There's no continuity in the X-Men franchise at all. In this movie, you see Emma Frost as a like young woman, and then you see her as an old adult in the next movie. You see like Cyclops in this movie, and then Cyclops is played by a completely different actor in the next movie. This movie has so many contradictions, but let me get into the plot real quick. So, Wolverine is old and he's lived forever. He's fought in a bunch of wars with his brother, who's Sabretooth, which is not canon. Him and Sabretooth fight all these wars, and they get recruited after doing a war crime to a special mutant task force. This mutant task force is looking for adamantium. They seem to have found adamantium, but then Wolverine's like, wait a minute, I don't like killing people. Even though his saying is, I'm the best at what I do, and what I do isn't really nice, alluding to murder.
It's very ironic that of all the wars they were a part of, they somehow always end up being on the good guys or the winning side.
Very woke.
Of course, if you had those on your team, you would probably win. But, you know, I would love just one time, like, they just show them, you know, like, killing a bunch of Indians or doing...
Whoa.
Or doing something else. Or doing something else atrocious. It isn't until we get to Vietnam where it's like, yeah, that's a up part.
Right. Late 1800s. Were they alive for the Indians or the Native Americans? We should say.
Yeah.
Were they alive for the Native Americans?
Hold on. Honestly, they would have been alive for some of it. But that was just an example. I would have loved the part where they just did something horribly heinous. Aside from Vietnam. Vietnam is bad.
It looked like Sabretooth was about to essay somebody in Vietnam. So going back to the plot, they find this adamantium in an African village. Wolverine realizes that they are murdering people, and that's not cool. And then so he does what a lot of people in these superhero movies do, and he goes and lives alone in a cabin in the woods with a beautiful woman.
He does what every man would love to do. Just drop everything, go live in a cabin with your beautiful wife in Canada.
And she mind controls you.
And it makes you think everything is actually okay.
Right.
And
another bearded man decides to ruin this for Wolverine his Sabretooth comes back and he kills his love interest. And how did you feel during that scene?
You know, I've seen this movie before. I totally forgot that he doesn't actually kill him. Whenever the reveal came,
pops.
I went, yeah. Whenever the reveal came, I had an aha moment, like, oh wow, okay, I should not be surprised by this at all, but for some reason I am.
Pretty daunting when you find out that, because like, why did they do that? They gave her ketamine or something, and then she's
like, he wouldn't just leave the body. He also would probably inspect the body. There are so many things that he had to go, "Ah!" and then immediately get up and start running away and not like deal with the body at all. I mean, I guess Wolverine's dealt with a lot of dead bodies over the years, but me personally, if I come across a dead body, I don't know, I don't know if I'm just gonna leave it there, especially if it's like my wife.
And if Wolverine can smell, and like in certain adaptations his smell is so distinct, like he like can definitely tell if somebody's alive or dead via their smell, because he can tell like anybody from any location. So anyways, she's dead at this point in the movie, dead. And then he goes and he confronts his brother Sabretooth, which, by the way, let me repeat, not canon. And they fight at a bar. After this fight, Wolverine kind of gets his butt kicked.
He gets his claw stomped on, and we had a little bit of discussion, maybe not a disagreement. In that scene, he experiences an immense amount of pain. It seemed, but like there has to be like nerves in his spikes for him to feel that amount of pain.
Are there nerves in the bones?
I mean, I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure nerves exist in your bones.
It just doesn't make sense because it's like outside of his like skin and it's exposed, and like
your teeth don't hurt. Well, your teeth kind of hurt. Like there are nerves
your teeth
inside.
Can get sanded down.
If your teeth get cut in half, that's gonna hurt.
Editing Mish here, I had to figure out if that would hurt, so I asked ChatGPT, of course. I used AI for a video, sue me. Bones themselves don't have nerves in them. And I also just straight up asked it in the scene where Wolverine gets his claws smashed by Victor, would that hurt? The portrayal of pain is dramatized for cinematic effect. In reality, bones do not contain nerves, and cutting or breaking them would not cause immediate pain. So there you go. That would not cause a reaction that dramatic. Let's play that reaction one more time for you.
Wolverine gets his butt kicked, then he shows up to William Stryker, and where is William Stryker chasing him down?
Sort of. It's more like he's manipulated him to think that Victor's chasing him down, but in reality, he's commanding Victor to chase him down, which is, I don't know. You have to suspend your disbelief that Wolverine doesn't have it in his head that, oh, Stryker is actually, it just so happens that both of these people know exactly where I am. The guy who would know where I am is probably Stryker, who has all the resources, not Victor, who doesn't really have all those resources. Maybe it's Stryker that's sending Victor to me. No, that didn't go through his head at all, which is crazy to me.
Sometimes I like avoiding my problems too and the reality in front of me, but I would feel like Wolverine's had a lot of practice in not doing that.
Yeah, like 100 years worth at least. It gets to a point where William Stryker kind of makes a deal with Wolverine, and he's like, hey, give me your consent to put adamantium in your bones. And side note, I watched a Cosmonauts video on this, and he points out that, like, why does he need his consent if he's gonna kidnap other mutants? Which Stryker says in this movie.
He says that Wolverine's immune to anesthesia.
Yeah, immune to anesthesia.
I think he needs consent because he needs Wolverine to feel like he has some agency. And I think the directors are trying to do this funny thing by juxtaposing the animalistic rage of Wolverine with like his consent to like enter this. So like, those are two different things, but it's like,
I think you're thinking about this more than
I'm pretty sure the direct feels like there's almost something there that they were trying to do, but it's not really thought out well enough. Maybe Wolverine's just big and scary.
Wolverine gets his adamantium, and then he hears underwater somehow that they're going to kill him or erase his memory, and so he escapes from this facility and then runs into a barn naked. So Wolverine is in a barn with a whole bunch of two innocent people. And you know how it goes in an X-Men movie. If there's somebody living in a barn, they're gonna get capped. So they get capped. This triggers the dumbest action scene in the world. Horrible CGI. Horrible set pieces.
They had to get one scene of a cool guy walking away from an explosion without looking at it.
This movie has a cringe factor beyond compare. The cringe factor in this movie is elevated. If you watch my videos and you think that's cringe, dude, watch this movie and you'll get 10 times that. I guarantee you. If you like my videos, you'll love this movie, right? We can agree on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
So they get murked. He's all like upset or whatever. And
yeah, Zero's like, he's like, Wolverine says to Zero, you killed innocents. And then Zero hits him with well, it's innocents really like to die around you, don't they? And then he's like, oh, f- you. And he makes a cheesy explosion happen.
So Wolverine goes to another one of his old teammates, played by will.i.am.
Shout out will.i.am.
Shout out will.i.am. Very odd choice in performance. Very odd taking him seriously. But yo, this is the best scene in the movie. will.i.am is with another teammate who's a more famous mutant by the name of the Blob. And the best scene in the movie is Wolverine getting into a boxing match with the Blob, because this is the only time that the movie doesn't take itself seriously. And golly, did we need that in these cringy X-Men movies. When you watch the 90s cartoons or Evolution, what makes them so good is that there are some scenes where they don't take themselves seriously, and they take themselves seriously to a point where it's hilarious. That kind of is a similar trope in this movie. Oddly enough, this might be a perfect X-Men movie.
I don't. What makes you? What part did I just miss there? Where you convinced yourself that this was the perfect X-Men movie?
After this boxing scene, he gets information, goes down to Louisiana to see Gambit. Now, I'm gonna be honest. I was hating on Gambit when he first appeared. Then he did some really cool stuff that made it feel like I was watching Gambit. Good Gambit. They run into Sabretooth.
They run into Victor.
They have another fight with him.
Kill will.i.am's character.
Oh, yes.
And that was a cool scene. I always remember
loss.
that scene where he teleports and then Victor catches his spine. Like, that is a very neat. I thought that was cool.
Can Spectre even teleport? Spectre. X-Men. He's white. Spectre's dead. Blob is MIA. Pretty much Wolverine ends up going back to what is a 3 Mile Island with Gambit, and they go in there to kick some William Stryker butt. Now, William Stryker is an interesting character because in this movies he's just a mad scientist who hates X-Men or hates mutants, and in the comics he's like a preacher who has a mutant son who believes that mutants are the devil, and it is really more of an interesting like social imbalance type vibe versus the I'm just gonna use them to do cool stuff. Not to mention that there are 3 actors that play William Stryker in these movies.
Yeah.
All with completely different vibes.
Yeah.
The first one is he's like a menacing villain. He's the closest to the comic books in X2. And in the second one, this guy is just a mad scientist trying to make super mutants. And then the third one is sort of the understudy for Peter Dinklage's character. Yeah. But he's working his way up. This is the worst Stryker out of the 3, no question. What is William Stryker working on in this island? He has a bunch of captured mutants, and he's trying to combine them into the super mutant. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's not canon. And let me tell you, the most offensive and least canon part of this movie is that Deadpool has laser eyes, a blade that comes out of his knife, his mouth is shut, and he can teleport.
A blade that comes out of his what now?
A blade that comes out of his knives, I think is what I said, but I'm going to stick with that. It's an assault on the character, and obviously, if you watch a Deadpool movie now, it's all good. We can laugh about it. But when you're watching the movie, you're like, ooh. Kids get rescued by Professor X, as usual.
One scene where I thought it was hilarious whenever Cyclops, they're in the island, and it's all the kids, and Emma Frost's character comes up and like uses her body as like a shield, and Cyclops takes off his glasses, and my man, I mean, it's just hilarious how I hate to do it, but he just screams and just, it's so over the top, it's so ridiculous. I kind of like that scene for the ridiculous factor of it.
And then Wolverine and Sabretooth team up to kill Deadpool. Deadpool gets his head chopped off, and that supposedly does it for a temporary time. But then Wolverine and Sabretooth still end up on kind of bad terms, kind of good terms. And
it's never addressed again.
Because they see each other in the first X-Men movie, and this obviously takes place before that first X-Men movie, and they just look at each other. This is that's all that happens. There's no verbal dialogue. Sabretooth would have known that they were brothers.
Huh.
You only see Sabretooth twice. You see him in the first movie, and you see him in this. So it's also not like when you watch that first X-Men movie, you're like, damn, they were brothers. Nobody, no, of course. Yeah, also William Stryker has a gun that shoots Wolverine in the head that erases his memory. But if you watch Logan, somebody uses that same type of bullet to kill Wolverine's clone in that movie. So, not canon. A lot of this stuff is just not canon.
mean, now, that Logan movie does occur approximately
In a different timeline.
over half a century later.
In a completely different timeline also. Because Days of Future Past is 2 movies after X-Men Origins Wolverine, and they go back in time and reset the entire timeline.
There you go.
I watch a lot of X-Men stuff.
I do not watch as much.
So, that's how the movie ends. And the movie was awful. There is nothing of value to this movie, unless if you're like me and you love to cringe. If you
It was fun to revisit something that we watched as a child and realize how bad it was, but I mean, it does not hold up. It does not hold up in the X-Men franchise at all.
I don't think the X-Men movie franchise as a whole holds up at all. I'm like, this last 6 months, you've seen me become just crazy about the X-Men.
Yeah,
And
it sure has spent a lot of, or not even a lot of money. My man figured out how the library card works.
yeah. And it's like when I watch like an X-Men cartoon, there's a completely different vibe than anything that Fox made with the X-Men. They have gotten close on a few occasions, but when I think of X-Men, I think of either a dramatic story about discrimination, or I think of weird alien now because of the cartoon. So yeah, that's. You got anything else you want to add about this movie?
At the very end of the movie, there's a scene where Wolverine's wife, the mind control lady, convinces or makes Stryker walk until his feet bleed. But we watched the whole movie. I remember this after credits scene of him being come up upon by a bunch of military guys, and his, goes down to his shoes, and they're all messed up and stuff and all that, and they grab him. That wasn't in the Disney Plus version. The only after credits scene on there was the one where Deadpool's hand finds his head.
Could it be a deleted scene? Could you be mistaking this for a deleted scene? Because I'm looking online right now.
Probably.
And I'm not finding it. Let me see.
Or it's been so long since I've watched this movie that I have created a false memory.
Wow, this movie is so bad. Adam made it good in his head, and then watched it, and it's even worse. Well, I think that's everything. If you like the cringe, I think you'll have a great time. Drink a little soda pop, eat some grapes, But if you really just don't like bad superhero movies, obviously this isn't for you. I personally, sometimes when watching this movie, had a great time. Other times, realized that I had made a poor life decision by watching this movie.
I could have been playing Path of Exile for the last 2 hours.
I could have been playing X-Men Origins Wolverine, the video game, which is a great game. You saw me play that game.
I was entertained to watch him. It was very entertaining.
Wolverine actually dies every 10 minutes in the game. It's pretty fun.
And it's brutalistic violence. Great video game.
Yeah.
Great smash 'em up. Great beat 'em up. Great violence.
Maybe I'll play that game next.
Maybe you should.
Palate cleanser.